Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be addressing some gaps in my weird childhood. That is to say, things that I did not get to do as a child that I wish I had gotten to do, that I'm now trying to make up for as an adult and experience for the first time. One of the shows I really had an interest in at the time that it was on, but was never allowed to view, was The X-Files. Those of you who know me know that I am huge into conspiracy theories and aliens and sci-fi and everything of that nature, being the nerd that I am. It was kind of a perfect show for me. I would have loved it almost as much as I love Star Trek, I think. And it could have had an important impact on my development as a scientist, as a nerd. So rather than reviewing one episode at a time, I think what I'm going to do, for the purposes of this not totally dominating my channel, is that I'm going to review one season at a time. So, how many seasons are there? Oh, either way. Today we'll be doing season 1, so I'm gonna jump right to it, skip all the prelude. So overall, this show is a procedural about FBI agents pursuing X-Files, which are these files they have on unsolved cases of mysterious circumstance. So this covers the whole spectrum. This covers everything from extraterrestrial life all the way out to folklore. Based on what I found, while trying to avoid as many spoilers as possible, the show was originally supposed to be all about the aliens all the time and nothing else. But they decided that, for the purposes of running the show longer, they decided to have other throwaway episodes about different things placed in periodically throughout the season just to spread things out so it wasn't all aliens all the time. This show definitely has a CSI or Supernatural type vibe where it's clearly a procedural. Every episode is pretty formulaic. They start with an opening scene where something happens and it's weird and we see what actually happens as the audience, and then the next scene we see the agents come in and do their thing and figure it out, and it could be explained by a natural thing, and then eventually it becomes clear that it's not, and it follows a very formulaic construct. So on the one hand, we have Dana Scully, who is there to be the skeptic. She's the main character of the show, based on the fact that everything seems to center around her right from the beginning. She's supposed to be us, the audience. She's supposed to be us coming in and going, prove to me that this is supernatural, prove to me that this is aliens. And then we have Mulder, who is the opposite. He is the opposite end of the spectrum. He is not at all a skeptic. He believes all of it. Or as he has famously said, he wants to believe all of it. There are some things that I absolutely love about this show, and some things that I absolutely hate about it. If there's anything that Star Trek The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine have taught me, it's that you cannot judge the whole show by its first or second season. Hopefully they're fine their pacing, and everything will be good by the time things get more intense. That being said, season 1 was not fantastic. There were some very low points and some very high points. Me, I'm here for the aliens. If it's an episode that involves aliens, I'm a sucker for it. I love it. What I don't know that I necessarily love is when they build a prop or offer an explanation for something that makes it less believable. Keep in mind, we're dealing with 1990s era TV level CGI on a first season of a show that hasn't really taken off yet. I'm forgiving of bad special effects in those circumstances, for sure. But I also really appreciate when a show is brave enough to write around something without necessarily showing us everything and letting it be off camera so that we can still enjoy the episode without having to suspend our disbelief in the light of very unbelievable special effects, for example. The season seems to focus on that struggle between Mulder and Scully. The whole, this is all real, this can't be real. They're at odds with each other the whole time. I don't think that can really last, because what they've done, especially in the earlier episodes, was they seem to put Mulder in the situation where he would witness things, and Scully just off in some place not quite caught up with him. They separate, he sees something, she doesn't, and then she doesn't believe him because she didn't see it. And it's like, that can only work mechanically for just so much. on the other side of the coin, I find it slightly unbelievable that Scully would not believe any of it by the time this season is over, and Mulder even calls her out on this and says, why don't you believe any of this by the end of the season? She's witnessed things that can only be explained by the existence of supernatural things, and she still is like, nope, it's just something I don't understand. Are you willfully not understanding it? Because it's right in front of you. Come on, Dana. My understanding is that this show has been criticized for having no character development, and that is definitely a problem with procedurals in general. That being said, it's particularly prevalent on this show. In episode 4, we see Dana Scully at some friend of hers hosting a birthday party for a kid, helping to chaperone, and her friend asks her, oh, when are you gonna have kids? And we never really get an answer to that. And it's just kind of frustrating because this is like the only time we see anything about that ever addressed in the canon of the show. Then we have another episode, episode 13, where Scully's father dies and we meet her parents for about 2 minutes and he's dead. And I'm not able to emotionally connect with that character or what it means for Scully, because Scully's whole thing is that she's the cold, logical one. And it kind of makes it hard for us, the audience, to sympathize with her, because we just met this man 2 minutes ago, saw him alive for all of 2 minutes, and now he's dead. And it kind of leaves me wanting, because now this character that was clearly important to her is dead, and I don't know anything about him, and I likely won't because he's dead. One thing I did like in that same episode, though, is that Scully is the believer and Mulder is the doubter. It's kind of a nice reversal of their characters, but we never really see this again. Similarly, Mulder, it's revealed in episode 12, is intensely afraid of fires, and if memory serves, he's been around fires in prior episodes, but never had this problem. It feels like they wrote it in for the purpose of that episode to create extra conflict, and I'm kind of curious if it's ever going to come up again, or if it's just kind of a throwaway. By far, my least favorite episode of this season was episode 20. Every part of it is awkward in some way. Mulder starts off the episode with a slide projector presentation about the case they're going to be investigating, which has never been done in episodes prior to that and feels incredibly cheesy. Like, how many hours did he spend putting together this presentation versus just telling her, hey, we gotta go investigate this, here are the pictures, and then, like, making up slides and doing a whole presentation? It's weird. It's weird. One of the central plot points of that episode is that there are these bugs that, when the light is on them, are not a threat to them. So they have a generator at a log cabin in the middle of the woods, and they're so concerned about, oh, we gotta keep the generator going. But they're in a log cabin in a dense forest that was used for logging. There is burnable wood all around them. They don't need it to be an electrical light. They're not using the electricity for anything else. Just light a fire. And then the cherry on top of this fantastic episode was the part where they get attacked by the bugs, and for absolutely no reason whatsoever are able to survive. Never explained, even in the episode, never brought up again in the rest of the season. No idea why or how they're able to survive that situation when no one else was, and they did nothing different. It makes no sense. It's riddled with plot holes, and it is by far the lowest point of the season and a complete throwaway. I really think they just needed an episode, and this was the one that was closest to ready to go, and they just padded out the rest of the season with it. It honestly, I hated this episode. For me, the highlight of the season was episode 7, Ghost in the Machine. As a programmer, of course, I'm gonna love a rogue AI story. It was very well done, a little cheesy at times, going through air ducts and stuff, which of course no one can really do, and fans that can blow people away, but I mean, we had that in a different episode too. So maybe in the X-Files universe, fans are a real threat to people, but not so much in our universe. It's just kind of nice to see the way people thought about software in the 90s versus the way we think about it now. It really hasn't changed that much, but it is interesting seeing the tech involved and what they considered high-tech and futuristic back then. Although if I had seen this at the time it came out, I probably wouldn't have become a software developer. Or perhaps I would. Another low point for me was the Eve arc. they have this set of clones with extra chromosomes and superhuman abilities that also happens to go crazy and want to kill people and this whole thing, and I was bored. I didn't really get the point they were trying to make, I guess. And for me, anytime we introduce the possibility of a repeat character or recycling an actor as a different version of the same character, I'm a little like, So then, of course, there's this character, Deep Throat, which at first I thought was a really, really terrible choice of names for a character. And I was confused because they don't actually call him that until the last episode of the season, so I kept going, is this just what the fan base calls this person? No, it's a reference, it turns out, to Watergate, which I did not know, and there's a link in the description for who Deep Throat actually was in our history. It's kind of interesting. But of course, that character is killed off in the last episode. So my theory on him initially was that he was Mulder from the future, and that's why he had such a particular interest in Mulder and his work and the X-Files and all of that and why he was helping them, but I don't know if that is going to make any sense now that they've killed him off. There's a slight resemblance as well. So by the end of the last episode of the season, Scully has seen an alien life form. She has touched it, held it. I don't see how she could deny the existence of alien life after this, after everything that's happened in the episode. And of course, the X-Files gets shut down by the FBI at the end of that episode, which I'm a little curious to see how that's going to get undone, because I know there's more than one season of this show. I'm curious if they'll just continue on and do this freelance. I mean, neither of them seem to have many family attachments or anything. They could easily just go full Sam and Dean Winchester and work out of a, car on the road all the time. It could be done. But I think someone in power is going to restore the X-Files, or they're going to continue working on X-Files while working on other cases for the FBI. I don't think either of them will quit. I mean, I would. If my entire department got shut down, I'd probably quit my job. So those are my thoughts on Season 1 of The X-Files. So at some point in the future, I'll be putting up my thoughts on Season 2 and everything I think about that. There are other things I did not get to experience in my childhood. There are foods I haven't tried, there are shows I haven't watched, games I haven't played. I have a lot of other videos planned like this, so I'm hoping that you'll find them interesting. I'm certainly finding them interesting because I'm getting to catch up on everything I missed out on. And I hope you guys will come back next week. Until then, stay curious.